Hey folks, this is Astus. This video is a continuation of a pretty long recording session where I discuss all of the announcements that Larian has made on what is going to be in the full release of Baldur's Gate 3 with their community update number 20. If you haven't watched the first video, you should check it out. There I talk about level caps, the new races, the announced monk class, as well as changes to the barbarian and the bard class. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the changes to all of the remaining classes, and there will be a part 3 in this series. For format, what I've done is taken the printed rules in Wizards of the Coast tabletop rulebooks for all of the changes that Larian has announced, and then we just go through them. I discuss them, of course. I share my opinion, which is focused on optimization and tactical combat. I hope you like it. Let's dive right in. The Cleric base class, what does it get between level 6 and 12? Well, at level 6, it gains a second Channel Divinity spell slot. This is really good. Channel Divinities are good. I mean, it depends on your subclass, but most of the subclasses are giving you really useful and good Channel Divinities. So now you're getting 2 of them per short rest. That's awesome. Amazing. At level 8, you get Destroy Undead, CR1, and now I could copy and paste the rules as it is in the player's handbook, but Larian has already changed it the way they've implemented it CR1 half in the game. So if you take Larian's formula of 1/2 equaling 2d8 radiant damage, this is adding 4d8 radiant damage to your Destroy Undead. So again, really good against Undead, against everything else, it's whatever. Divine Intervention. So this is an interesting feature. You get this at level 10. Here's what the PHB says for it. You can call on your deity to intervene on your behalf whenever your need is great. Employing your deity's aid requires you to use your action, describe the assistance you seek, and roll a percentile dice. If you roll a number equal to or lower than your cleric level, your deity intervenes. So it's a percent of succeeding that is equal to your cleric level. And then the DM chooses the nature of the intervention. So obviously I have no idea how this is going to be implemented by Larian, but it's supposed to be a kind of Hail Mary fight ender. Yeah, what's this going to be? It's hard to know, but it's cool. It's interesting. And then finally at level 11, your Destroying Dead goes up to CR2, which if we are translating it is an extra 8d6 radiant damage on your Destroy Undead Channel Divinity. Altogether, this is really not changing the Cleric base class that much. And all of the changes to the Cleric base class are going to be coming from the subclasses, and there are many. In the game right now in Early Access, we have Light, Life, and Trickery. All of those I'm going to talk about what they're also gaining in later levels, but Larian has also confirmed all of the other domains that are in the player's handbook, which is an additional 4. So there's a lot of subclasses to talk about it. Let's just dive right in. First off, the Life Cleric. Bonus spells. All of the domains are getting bonus spells. The extra bonus spells that you are getting at levels 7 and 9 for the subclass are at level 7, Death Ward and Guardian of Faith. At level 9, Mass Cure Runes and Raise Dead. It's the same story. These spells are not that good. They're spells that you're already getting in your class list. So honestly, I don't want to talk about spells too much in this video because it's going to be long enough as it is. I'll make another video later to talk about spells. So moving on, Blessed Healer at level 6. The healing spells that you cast on others heal you as well. So whenever you heal a ally, your own hit points are restored equal to 2 plus the spell's level. So that's pretty cool. Basically, you want to tank hits with this class so that you're always getting the effect of this, but you also don't want to be tanking hits as a cleric because that always runs the risk of dropping concentration, and the concentration slot in a cleric is so valuable. So there's a little bit of a dyssynergy in this class. And then at level 8 you gain Divine Strike. This is a feature that's similar to a lot of subclasses, which Divine Strike adds 1d8 radiant damage to your melee attacks. So yeah, an extra 1d8 damage is pretty good, but you're not really a melee striker with this class, so yeah, not much to say. Life Cleric is staying pretty much the same at B tier. Next up is Light. Here are its bonus spells. Level 7, Guardian of Faith, Wall of Fire. At level 9, Flame Strike and Scrying. Again, same story. It is adding a little bit of fire AoE damage to the Cleric base class, which is always welcome. At level 6, you get Improved Flare, which allows you to use your Warding Flare feature which we already have in the game, for other creatures. So you can impose disadvantage on attacks made to other creatures. This is good. It's giving you a support element to your Warding Flare. The problem is that Warding Flare has always been gated by a low amount of uses per long rest, so it doesn't really help with that. That's kind of a shame. Then at level 8, you gain Potent Spellcasting. Another very common feature. Some other subclasses will be getting this. At level 8, Cleric subclasses either get Divine Strike or Potent Spellcasting. Potent Spellcasting allows you to add your Wisdom modifier to the damage you deal with any Cleric cantrip. Overall, this is just worse than Divine Strikes. You should always prefer Divine Strikes over Potent Spellcasting. Why? Because there aren't any good offensive Cleric cantrips, right? There's, what is it called? Divine Fire? Man, I can't ever remember it because I never cast it, because it is a save spell cantrip, and save spell cantrips are not good. Now, adding your Wisdom modifier to it is decent, I guess. Like, that's helping, definitely. It's helping for damage, but it's still just one flat addition on it, and you're not going to get any of that damage if the targets make their saving throw, which is pretty common. So yeah, Potent Spellcasting, not great. All the value of the light subclass is coming from the features that it's already getting at levels 1 through 5 that we're familiar with in early access. So moving on, Trickery. Trickery bonus spells at level 7, it gains Dimension Door and Polymorph. At level 9, it gains Dominate Person and Modify Memory. Channel Divinity, it gains a Channel Divinity at level 6, which allows you to use your Channel Divinity to vanish. As an action, you become invisible until the end of your next turn. You become visible if you attack or cast a spell. This is pretty bad. It's like B tier, I'd say. It's a way of avoiding aggro. I guess that's kind of nice. You could go invisible once you have already cast a spell like Spirit Guardians. So Spirit Guardians is going to be applying damage without making an attack or technically casting a spell, because you're just maintaining concentration on a spell you've already cast. So you can just stay invisible, avoid aggro, and still deal damage to targets. That's nice, I guess, but you could already do that with just casting the invisibility spell. Or is that concentration? You know what? This might actually be very good. This might actually be a concentration-free use of Invisible, which allows you to combine with Spirit Guardians. Yeah, that actually might be good. And then finally, you get Divine Strike, which is allowing you to deal 1d8 poison damage. So it's poison damage for the Trickery Cleric. Yeah, let's look out for the combination of Cloak of Shadows with Spirit Guardians, but for the rest of this class, it's not really offering that much. Okay, so we've covered the 3 Cleric domains that are in the game so far in early access. Now we are getting into the new domains announced for full release of the game, starting with Knowledge Domain. Bonus spells. At level 1, the Knowledge Domain gains Command and Identify, 3, Augury and Suggestion, level 5, Non-Detection and Speak with Dead, at level 7, Arcane Eye and Confusion, then at level 9, Legend, Lore, and Scrying. It's hard to know which of these spells are really going to be in the game and how they're going to be implemented, so again, I'm just going to brush over bonus spells unless there's a particular spell that needs to be discussed. At level 1, Knowledge Domain clerics gain Blessing of Knowledge. You become proficient in a choice of 2 of the following skills: Arcana, History, Nature, or Religion. Your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check you make that uses either of those skills, okay? That's pretty neat, but it is out of combat utility, not much to discuss as far as combat tactics go. They also gain a Channel Divinity at level 2, just like all the domains. Their Channel Divinity is Knowledge of the Ages. You can use your Channel Divinity to tap into a Divine Well of Knowledge as an action. You choose 1 skill or tool. For 10 minutes, you have proficiency with the chosen skill or tool. Again, mostly out of combat utility for this one. At level 6, they gain another Channel Divinity, Read Thoughts. As an action, choose 1 creature that you can see within 60 feet of you. That creature must make a Wisdom saving throw. If the creature succeeds the saving throw, you can't use this feature on it again until you finish a long rest. If the creature fails its save, you can read its surface thoughts when it is within 60 feet of you. Okay, so this is like a Read Mind effect. It lasts for 1 minute. So it's probably going to be similar to the Read Thoughts available in the game right now. Once again, this is out of combat utility. And then at level 8, they gain Potent Spellcasting. You add your Wisdom modifier to the damage you deal with any Cleric cantrip. So, of course, we discussed this with the Light Cleric. Not as good as Divine Strikes. altogether, this subclass is looking pretty underwhelming, offering mostly out-of-combat utility on top of the Cleric class, which still might be good. It's hard to know at this point. In early access, none of these skills are that good, but there might be a way that we can leverage some of the skill proficiencies this class gets to gain unique or powerful items earlier than we otherwise would be able to. It's, you can't know until the full release of the game. So, tentatively C tier for this subclass. Let's move on now to the nature domain. Here are the bonus spells for the nature domain. Nothing here really worth talking about, so we'll go on to its level 1 ability, Acolyte of Nature. You learn one cantrip of your choice from the Druid spell list. This cantrip counts as a Cleric cantrip for you, but it doesn't count against a number of Cleric cantrips you know. You also gain proficiency in one of the following skills of your choice: Animal Handling, Nature, or Survival. Alright, so you get to learn a Druid cantrip. Druid cantrips aren't really much better than Cleric cantrips. Maybe you take this to learn Shillelagh, but that is not really a build-defining cantrip. You know what? The Vine Whip is pretty good for pulling targets towards you, so I guess there are some useful cantrips, but still not really build-defining. At level 1, you also gain proficiency in heavy armor. At level 2, your channel divinity is Charm, Animal, and Plants, and it pretty much does what it says on the tin. As an action, you present your holy symbol and invoke the name of your deity. Each beast or plant creature that you can see within 30 feet of you must make a wisdom saving throw. If the creature fails its saving throw, it is charmed by you for 1 minute or until it takes damage. Charmed is not really that good of a condition. You would think that a charmed creature will fight for you, but that's not correct. Technically, a charmed creature just will not attack you, but they may attack other members of your party. So it is a way of damage avoidance, which can be useful on a concentration-dependent class like the Cleric. So there is definitely some use of this, but it's just good and very situational, which is a solid B tier spell if this is a spell. And you can consider channel divinities as kind of like spells. So overall, not that great. Moving on. Level 6, they get Dampen Elements. When you or a creature within 30 feet of you takes acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage, you can use your reaction to grant resistance to the creature against that instance of damage. Notice this is not gated by anything. You can do this resource free. All it takes is your reaction, but you're not expending spell slots or channel divinities, nothing like that. So this is a phenomenal ability. Elemental damage is very common and can be extremely potent, especially cold and lightning damage when it is doubled with Create Water, which most enemies are not doing to you, but it is definitely possible for it to happen. But either way, so it's really good if you are granting resistance to a damage type that they are vulnerable to. Why? Well, vulnerability doubles damage, resistant halves it, but whenever something is both resistant and vulnerable to the same damage type, they cancel each other out. So in a normal situation where you aren't vulnerable and then you gain resistance, you could see it as halving the damage. Whereas whenever you are vulnerable to the damage and someone makes you resistant, so you're technically still having the damage, but it's half of the double. So you're actually reducing a full instance of the damage that it would normally deal. So yeah, this is just phenomenal. Such a phenomenal ability. Definitely one big reason to take this subclass. The other big reason to take this subclass is Divine Strike at level 8. This is just like the Divine Strikes we talked about, except that the weapon damage type can be either cold, fire, or lightning, your choice. Of course, the choice is pretty obvious. You're going to take cold or lightning because you can double those against wet targets. So this is, as far as I remember, the only Divine Strike that actually deals cold or lightning damage, making it by far the most valuable Divine Strike of any of the subclasses. So with these two abilities after 6 and up, we really find the niche for the Nature Cleric. I'm giving it a solid A tier for now. Definitely one of the best domains we have looked at so far. But let's move on to Tempest Cleric. Now, Tempest Cleric is one of my personal favorite classes because probably the longest 5e campaign I played as a player, I had a Tempest Cleric, and I am really expecting them to be good in Baldur's Gate 3. They're kind of like the light Cleric in that their bonus spells supplements the Cleric list with some offensive spells, but the offensive spells tend to do thunder, cold, or lightning damage, and we just talked about why cold and lightning damage is better than, say, the fire damage that the light Cleric is dealing. So definitely some of these bonus spells are quite good additions for the class. At level 1, it also gains bonus proficiencies in martial weapons and heavy armor. That's to be expected. It's kind of like a fightery version of a Cleric. You also gain Wrath of the Storm at level 1. You can thunderously rebuke attackers. When a creature within 5 feet of you that you can see hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to cause the creature to make a dexterity saving throw. The creature takes 2d8 lightning damage or thunder damage, your choice. Okay, we're definitely picking lightning on a failed saving throw and half as much damage on a successful one. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. Okay, so it is gated by your wisdom modifier. That's 5 per long rest. It refreshes on a long rest. So that is pretty limiting, but what this is giving you 5 times per long rest is very good. 2d8 lightning damage. We can be doubling that against wet targets, and it is weaponizing our reaction awesome. At level 2, their Channel Divinity is Destructive Wrath. You can use your Channel Divinity to wield the power of the storm with unchecked ferocity. When you roll lightning or thunder damage, you can use your Channel Divinity to deal maximum damage instead of rolling. Okay, so not only are we potentially doubling our lightning damage attacks against wet targets, we can also expend our Channel Divinity to deal maximum. Now, anyone who has played the Kenzai Thief multi-class or dual class in the original Baldur's Gate games knows the value of maximizing the damage whenever you are applying a multiplier. When you've got a multiplier on your damage, like, for example, double damage against vulnerable targets, that's a ×2 multiplier. The deal maximum damage ability is always worth more. They synergize so much more because every point of damage you roll is being multiplied. And then of course there's just the removing the RNG effect. With this you can guarantee the amount of damage that you need to take out a target. Again, phenomenal ability. Moving on now, level 6, Thunder Strike. When you deal lightning damage to a large or smaller creature, you can also push it 10 feet away from you. Okay, this one's not as game-changing as these others, but still really good. For one, this is pushing large targets, whereas the shove action is restricted to medium or smaller. So you're able to push targets with this that you wouldn't be able to with shove. And then pushing is just so good in Baldur's Gate 3. You can push people off of cliffs, you can push people into your AoE effects, you can push people into holes or into lava. So situationally very strong, Thunder Strike. And then finally they get Divine Strike. Now I know what you're thinking, does their Divine Strike deal lightning damage? It does not. I don't know why they don't give you the option. I wish they would give you thunder or lightning, but they just give you thunder damage. So this is just the same as any other Divine Strike. There's nothing special about it. But that's the only disappointment that we're seeing in this subclass. Everything else they get is phenomenal. I am predicting the Tempest Cleric to be the strongest Cleric subclass, and the Cleric is already one of the strongest classes, so this goes right up to S tier. Of course, all of this depends on how Larian implements these things, but definitely there's a lot of potential for the Tempest Cleric subclass, and I'm excited because I love the subclass. I'd love it even if it was B tier. And that brings us to the last Cleric domain, the Domain of War. You can see their bonus spells here. At level 1, you gain proficiency with martial weapons and heavy armor. That's to be expected. At level 1, you also gain War Priest. When you use the attack action, you can make one weapon attack as a bonus action. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. This would be a great feature if it wasn't gated by your wisdom modifier. Still though, this is pretty good. There definitely will be times when you're not proccing that bonus action attack on things like Great Weapon Master, and you can use this instead, so excellent. Definitely gives the War Priest potential to be a weapon striker class. At level 2, their Channel Divinity is Guided Strike. You can use your Channel Divinity to strike with supernatural accuracy. When you make an attack roll, you use your Channel Divinity to gain a +10 bonus to the roll, a plus 10. You make this choice after you see the roll, but before the DM says whether the attack hits or misses. I don't know if Larian's going to implement that part, but a plus 10 is pretty much a guaranteed hit. It's going to hit. Of course, this is costing your channel divinity, but it's worth the cost to guarantee hits, especially hits on certain spells. For example, if you're upcasting Inflict Wounds, a plus 10 bonus is a big deal. And then, of course, if you are going the Great Weapon Master, your Striker route, which seems just tailor-made for this subclass, a plus 10 bonus to guarantee to hit on a target that you're close to killing is very good. Anytime you're spending a resource to cancel enemy actions, i.e. by killing them, that's typically worth the resource. But let's move on. Their level 6 feature is the Channel Divinity War God's Blessing. When a creature within 30 feet of you makes an attack roll, you can use your reaction to grant that creature a plus 10 bonus to the damage roll using your Channel Divinity. So this just takes the Guided Strike Channel Divinity and allows you to cast it on allies within 30 feet of you as a reaction. Not bad. It could be better, but still pretty good, and especially, again, on our big strikers. Our big Great Weapon Master strikers, giving them a plus 10 is huge. So really just the same application of Guided Strike. And then finally, at level 8, they gain Divine Strikes, where they deal a bonus 1d8 of the same type dealt by the weapon. Sorry guys, if you're hearing clicking, that is my guinea pig. It's taking a drink of water. Basically the same as other Divine Strikes. It's not diversifying your damage type, so maybe a little bit worse. Altogether, this is a decent subclass. The real standout for me, as I said, is the Tempest Cleric, and with Nature Cleric coming in a close second, and then maybe War. Those are the ones I'm most excited about on full release. You can let me know your opinions. Alright, we've covered the Cleric class, let's move on. We still have so much to go through. Next class is the Druid. Druid features that they're going to gain from level 6 to 12. They're going to gain improvements to Wild Shape. That's it. And it's really impossible to know what this means. Of course, in Tabletop, there are rules that have to do with the CR of monsters, of what you can change into. But more than likely, Larian will implement this by just gradually giving you new Wild Shapes as you level up. That's what they've done in Early Access, and to me, that is the best implementation. And of course, Larian doesn't strictly follow the monster manual for the animal shapes that they give you, so we can't know how good this is, but I suspect it will be pretty good. It has to be good. This is the fantasy of playing the Druid, is your wild shape, so please, Larian, give us some good stuff to turn into. Anyways, the biggest changes that we can actually predict will have to do with the subclasses, so let's go through them. Starting with the Circle of the Land, a subclass we have in Early Access so far. You'll be getting bonus spells, of course, and that varies by terrain. I'm not going to list them all, that would just take too long. At level 6, you gain Land's Stride. Moving through non-magical difficult terrain costs you no extra movement. You can pass through non-magical plants without being slowed by them, and without taking any damage from them if they have thorns, spines, or a similar hazard. In addition, you have advantage on saving throws against plants that are magically created or manipulated to impede your movement, such as those created by the Entangle spell. Okay, so there's two parts of this. There's the advantage on your saving throws against magical terrain effects, and then there's your immunity to natural non-magical terrain effects. Are there any natural non-magical terrain effects? Absolutely. Even in Early Access, there are little spots of vines and thorns, and with this you can move through them. You're completely immune to them, you can move through them, which basically, the way I see it, is a advantage to your kiting. If you disengage from a target who's closed on you and you run through or into a patch of vines, they are probably not going to match your movement and close a distance on you, and it gives you an extra turn, or maybe forces them to pick a different target, and that can be very good. But in Early Access, the non-magical vines are very sparse. I can't think of a use of this ability with the ones in Early Access so far, so it'll be hard to know how useful this is until we actually play the game and know about the terrain we're going to be fighting in. And then there's this advantage on saving throws against things like Entangle or Create Plants. Again, it's really difficult to know whether we're going to be fighting enemies that use these. So far, The only enemies that use these are if you decide to go the evil route and fight the Druid Grove. So, not very common. Overall, it's niche and not that great, very situational. I'm not super impressed by Landstride. At level 10, they gain Nature's Ward. You can't be charmed or frightened by elementals or fae, and you are immune to poison and disease. Already there are some high-level fae encounters in early access, and there is the promise of re-encounters with even some of the fae we fought so far. Also, frankly, there's an elemental fight that's optional but difficult. Fae and elementals are likely to be in the game and likely to be difficult fights. However, being immune to charm, frighten, poison, and disease aren't exactly the conditions that we're worried about. I would be worried about paralyze. Paralyze is the big problem, not charmed or frightened. So these conditions are not that debilitating. Getting immunity to them only against elemental and fae, extremely situational for what you're getting. So there just isn't a lot in the subclass. That said, the main reason to pick a Land Cleric is for a scaling feature it gets at level 2, which is the Nature's Recovery, I believe it's called. It just allows you to recover spell slots, and it scales with your level. So even if all of these features aren't that good, the Land Cleric is still worth taking just for that scaling spell recovery feature. Spells are so powerful in this game, so do not sleep on the Land Cleric. But let's move on. Moon. The Circle of the Moon Cleric at level 6 gains Primal Strike. Your attacks in your beast form count as magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. Okay. That is not very good or exciting, so... I mean, technically it is pretty good. If you are fighting a target that's resistant to non-magical attacks, getting this is huge, but it's just kind of a passive thing that you get to keep you on track with what other classes get for free. So it does not feel like a feature to me. The big feature that they get is Elemental Wild Shape. You can expend 2 uses of Wild Shape at the same time to transform into an Air Elemental, an Earth Elemental, a Fire Elemental, or a Water Elemental. How good this is going to depend on how Larian implements these elementals. But I will say, so far in the game, like I said before, there's an optional fight against a Fire Elemental in Grimforge, and that thing is a beast. I mean, it really slaps. And the big thing that it gets is that it heals from fire damage. So it's like double immunity. The other elementals in this game get features like that. I could see this being insanely strong. I mean, the gimmicks you can do when your characters heal from elemental damage, it's really fun. You could start casting fireballs on them and you're damaging enemies and healing them. It would be insane. I mean, it would be really fun and extremely powerful. So I am hoping, fingers crossed, Larian gives us something like that. And honestly, I'm expecting that they will. My prediction is that the Moon Druid is going to skyrocket back into S tier on full release of the game once we get all of the wild shapes that Larian has planned for us. I think this is the area where the designers at Larian really get to express their creativity and to tap into some of the design philosophies they have from Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2. And those games, tactically speaking, are so cracked. The stuff you can do in them is insane. So, yeah. It's hard to tell just from this, but I am predicting S tier Moon Druid just based off of the elemental wild shapes and even the normal wild shapes. And that brings us to the last confirmed subclass, which is Circle of the Spores. This one was a surprise because it is not in the player's handbook. Circle of the Spores is in, again, it's either Tasha's or Xanatar's. I get those two mixed up in my mind all the time. But it's an interesting subclass. I really like it, both thematically and mechanically, so let's discuss it. Circle spells. Circle of Spores is going to get bonus spells. Here they are. Interesting ones worth mentioning. Definitely Animate Dead is very cool. Some of these could be interesting, but we don't know how they're going to implement them, so we'll just move right past that to its features. At level 2, it gains Halo of Spores. You are surrounded by invisible necrotic spores that are harmless until you unleash them on a creature nearby. When a creature you can see moves into a space within 10 feet of you or starts its turn there, you can use your reaction to deal 1d4 necrotic damage to that creature unless it succeeds on a Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC. That necrotic damage increases to 1d6 at level 6 and 1d8 at level 10. These are very underwhelming advances. If it was going up by 1d4, so let's say 2d4 at level 6 and 3d4 at level 10, it would be much better. As it is, kind of underwhelming at scaling. The damage is low, but it doesn't cost a resource besides your reaction. Weaponizing your reaction is always good, because otherwise you normally are not able to do it. And even 1d4 is a lot of extra damage for a reaction when the usual amount of damage you're dealing with it is 0. Very cool feature, and it's just the beginning. Some of the other features that it gets build off it, so let's keep reading. At level 2, you also gain Symbiotic Entity. You gain the ability to channel magic into your spores. As an action, you can expend a use of your Wild Shape feature to awaken those spores, rather than transforming into a beast form. You gain 4 temporary hit points for each level you have in this class. Notice that that is a set number. Predictable, no RNG. You're not rolling 1d4, you're not rolling 1d8, you're just getting 4 hit points per level. So of course, at level 12, we can be expecting 48 temporary hit points. That's kind of a lot, so very cool. But there's more. While this feature is active, you gain the following benefits. When you deal your Halo of Spores damage, roll the damage dice a second time and add it to the total. Okay, now we're talking. Now your damage is starting to really add up. So by level 10, you'll be rolling 2d8. 2d8, of course, averages 9 damage. So you'll be dealing roughly 9 damage on a reaction if they fail their Constitution saving throw. And then also, your melee attacks deal an extra 1d6 necrotic damage to any target they hit. This benefit lasts for 10 minutes, until you lose all of these temporary hit points, or until you use your Wild Shape again. Very, very cool. A buff to your survivability, a buff to your damage, both on your reaction and on your weapon attacks. You're becoming a kind of frontline striker with a Druid, which is something you guys know. I like doing it anyways. I've experimented a lot with frontline striker Druids in this game, and they're already pretty good. So adding this on top of it could make them actually really push them into that viable high A tier of strikers. The one thing that gives me pause is this. This lasts until you lose all of your temporary hit points. That can be really bad, guys. I really hope they just remove this, because yeah, the idea of the temporary hit points is that you want to expend them, right? You're getting temporary hit points. To get the use of it, you actually have to take damage. But now, whenever you're taking damage, you're going to be losing all of the damage boost that you get from this ability. So it creates a kind of tension in this class where when you're casting this, you both want to take damage and also avoid damage, and that sucks. Honestly, my prediction of the way I will use this is to not actually frontline and probably use ranged attacks just so I can avoid taking damage and keep it up for the whole 10 minutes, which is really too bad. All they have to do is remove this one little clause right here, and this ability becomes awesome, no drawbacks, super fun to play. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think we can count on Larian doing that, so let's just expect that it'll be in the game. Finally, the Spores Druid at level 6 gains Fungal Infestation. You gain the ability to seed an area with deadly spores. As a bonus action, while your Symbiotic Entity feature is active, that is this one right here, the buff, you can hurl spores up to 30 feet away, or they swirl in a 10-foot cube for 1 minute. The spores disappear early if you use this feature again, if you dismiss them as a bonus action, or if your Symbiotic Entity feature is no longer active. When a creature moves into the cube or starts its turn there, that creature takes your Halo Spores damage, unless the creature succeeds on a Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC. A creature can take this damage no more than once per turn. Okay, so what does this mean? Basically, you're able to throw your spores so that they are triggering in an AoE effect rather than as an aura effect. What is the advantage of that? Well, one is an increase in range. You could throw the AoE and then run away. And so if someone's still in the AoE, they can take the damage from much farther away than than if it's an aura on you. Also, it is no longer taking your reaction. It just procs automatically. You're not spending your reaction on it. Is that an advantage? It is a very, very slight advantage. The thing about using it as an AoE is targets can just walk out of it. You're going to have to combine this with a bunch of other tactics to really get a lot of use out of it, whereas an auras are one of the best targeting systems in the game. They can always hit the targets that you want. Now, the reduction in action economy, that is it no longer taking a reaction, is theoretically quite good, but I just don't think druids have other uses of their reaction, really. I don't know. Maybe they do in some spells that I'm just forgetting right now. But the value of it no longer costing a reaction is proportional to the opportunity cost, right? Like, what else can you do with your reaction? And if the other things you can do with your reaction is nothing, then it's not really a bonus at all. So I guess the best thing for this is just to be able to, is the extra range so that you can avoid taking hits and potentially losing the temporary hit points and your the bonus damage on your symbiotic entity. So it's fine, I guess. Not adding that much. Altogether, I would say this subclass is very interesting, potentially quite good, but definitely not overwhelmingly good. I give it an A tier. And that is all the druid subclasses. Next up is the fighter. So what is the fighter getting from level 6 to 11? On its base class, actually quite a bit. At level 6, they are gaining a bonus feat / ASI. We kind of talked about that at the very beginning of this video. Fighters and rogues gain an extra feat, and fighters are getting it at level 6. At level 9, they gain Indomitable. You can re-roll a saving throw that you fail. If you do so, you must use your new roll. You can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. Yeah, awesome. Re-roll a save, and it doesn't cost anything. I mean, you can only do it once per long rest, but it's not costing you anything in your action economy. Awesome. Definitely useful. And then finally, at level 11, they gain extra attack again. That's right. They will be attacking 3 times in a round. The only class that gets this, what's to say about this? It's just so good. An extra attack, that's just so good. So yeah, all of these are useful. So we can expect fighters to be getting a lot at the later levels. And then there is their subclasses, so let's go over them. First off, the Battlemaster. Of course, we have the Battlemaster in early access right now, and we're getting most of its features. However, at level 7 and 10, you learn 2 additional maneuvers of your choice. Yeah, well, right now that's not that good because there's not many good maneuvers. You can already pretty much get all the good ones. But I'm sure on full release, the game we're going to have a much wider selection of maneuvers, so gaining new ones is valuable. At level 7, you gain Know Your Enemy. If you spend at least 1 minute observing or interacting with another creature outside of combat, you can learn certain information about its capabilities compared to your own. Now, I just don't see how Larian's going to implement this. I don't know, maybe they'll just give you advantage on certain checks. And then finally, at level 10, your superiority dice go from 1d8s to 1d10s. That is barely an increase. For a level 10 feature, that's like nothing. So the Battlemaster isn't getting that much. The big thing that it's getting is selection. You just get more maneuvers, but we don't even know really what those maneuvers are. I could make a list of all the maneuvers available in Tabletop 5e, but that would just be too long to go over. You can definitely find it if you have the PHP, or I'm sure you could look it up if you don't have one. But yeah, the maneuvers are pretty good. And in particular, there's one that is used to increase your accuracy, and that is very valuable, of course. On a Great Weapon Master class with 3 attacks like this one, that one can be very good. Thing is with the Battlemaster is it gets most of its value whenever you pick the subclass at level 3, which makes it a prime candidate for multi-class dips. That said, if you want to go full out, the Fighter class gets so much at later levels that just fully investing in Battlemaster Fighter is still very good. I'm ranking this subclass an A tier. I expect that won't change. Next up is the Eldritch Knight. I am so psyched for the Eldritch Knight, guys. Like, seriously, it's going to be really fun. Some of the features it gets are quite good. So, let's go over them. At level 7, you're gaining 2nd level spells, and that is where you max on this class. It's kind of a shame that you're not getting into 3rd level spells. Some of the 3rd level spells are really good, but 2nd level spells is still excellent. The main feature I am looking for 2nd level spells in the Eldritch Knight is Hold Person, for a reason I will discuss in a second. At level 7, you also gain War Magic, When you use your action to cast a cantrip, you can make one weapon attack as a bonus action. This is honestly pretty bad. Basically, there are some cantrips where when you cast them, you get to make a weapon attack. And then with this, you make a second weapon attack. And that kind of mitigates the loss of war magic. The opportunity cost loss. Because what is the opportunity cost? It's the cost of just attacking 3 times with your double extra attack on a fighter. That's always going to be better. That's practically always going to be better. You can spam this every other turn on Blade Ward to give yourself a constant uptick of resistance to physical damage and still getting a lot of attacks in a round. That might actually be useful. That could be worth doing. With the exception of that, this is pretty underwhelming. It's not going to be that good casting spells like Firebolt, guys. Firebolt damage is never going to compete with just making weapon attacks, especially on a fighter class, which is making 3 weapon attacks with the attack action. So that's war magic. At level 10, they gain Eldritch Strike. You learn how to make your weapon strikes undercut a creature's resistance to your spells. When you hit a creature with a weapon attack, that creature has disadvantage on the next saving throw it makes against a spell you cast before the end of your next turn. This is so good. It's really difficult to impose disadvantage on saving throws in 5e and in Baldur's Gate 3. And this is an ability to do it on any saving throw. Any saving throw that you want. So there's just not a lot of features like this in the game, and you can use it to set up debilitating crowd control effects like Hold Person. Absolutely phenomenal. Also, there are scrolls in this game. Technically, the Eldritch Knight is capped at 2nd level spells, but I'm sure you could get scrolls for spells much, much higher. Can you imagine using the Eldritch Knight to cast a 5th or 6th level spell and targets have disadvantage to the saving throw guaranteed just for attacking, which you want to do anyways? This is an S tier ability and definitely makes the subclass worth taking. It is like the whole reason to take this subclass. It is so, so good and catapults the Eldritch Knight from the current RP tier it's in right now to an easy A tier, probably S tier. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to doing an Eldritch Knight playthrough. And then finally, the last subclass that the fighter gets is the Champion. This is not an early access. We were expecting it because it's in the player's handbook. I'm honestly really disappointed that the Champion's in the game. I don't think it is a good or interesting subclass. And I was hoping that they would recognize that and just replace it with some of the other subclasses available in Tasha's or Xanathar. Some of those ones can be really good, like the Rune Knight, for example. I'm a huge fan of the Rune Knight. As it is, Larian has announced the Champion. Let's talk about what it gets. At level 3, you gain Improved Critical. Your weapon attacks score critical hit on a 19 or 20. I mean, that's pretty good, but it's so passive. There's nothing active or tactical about it. So, not really fun, even though it is a decent boost to your damage. At level 7, you gain Remarkable Athlete. You can add half your proficiency bonus rounded up to any strength, dexterity, or constitution check you make that doesn't already use your proficiency bonus. In addition, when you make a running long jump, the distance you can cover increases by a number of feet equal to your strength modifier. All classes automatically get this in the game right now. So maybe they'll double it. If they're doubling it, that's good. Now we can talk. But yeah, I don't think we can really know how this is going to be implemented by Larian, so let's just move on. At level 10, you gain an extra fighting style. I mean, wow, that is so, so underwhelming. Fighting styles are usually features that classes get at levels 1 and 2. And now you're getting one at level 10? It's just so bad. It's so bad. Why? I mean, some of the fighting styles are interesting to double up, I guess, like the +1 to your armor class that you get from protection is just always good. But, like, they don't synergize really well with each other. It's just, like, 2 flat bonuses. Man, wow. I'm just so disappointed with this subclass. You know what? Let's just not talk about it. It's just making me sad. Moving on to the Paladin now. At level 6, this is the Paladin base class. They gain Aura of Protection. Whenever you or a friendly creature within 10 feet of you must make a saving throw, the creature gains a bonus to the saving throw equal to your charisma modifier. Okay, so it's a pretty small aura, that's 10 feet or 3 meters, but the benefit of it is amazing. Your charisma modifier to your saving throw, all saving throws. So paladins are really wanting to get at least an 18, probably a 20 to their charisma for a total of a +4, +5. That is around the value of your proficiency bonus. So you can think of this as giving you an added proficiency bonus worth to all of your saving throws. Like you're proficient in all of your saving throws. And then on the saving throws you are proficient, it just kind of doubles it. That's amazing. That's one of the best bonuses to your saving throws in the entire game. It absolutely combines with Bless as well. With Bless and Aura of Protection and high enough charisma, you're reliably passing every saving throw. And that's just incredible. I mean, that's halving damage from a lot of save spell effects. That's shrugging off of debilitating effects like Paralyze. Unbelievable. Unbelievably good. Again, the only problem is that it's just not a very wide aura. It's hard to keep your whole party within 10 feet of your paladin. That said, you can pretty reliably keep at least one person, the other melee striker, within 10 feet of your paladin, and the paladin's always getting it. So at least half of your party is getting this bonus. S tier all the way. I mean, another fantastic reason to pick the paladin, but let's keep reading. At level 10, you gain Aura of Courage. You and a friendly creature within 10 feet of you can't be frightened while you are conscious. Okay, so it's immunity to the frightened condition. You're probably already immune to the frightened condition anyways because of the bonuses you're getting to your saving throws. And the frightened is not that debilitating of effect, so this is just whatever. It'll probably proc a few times, but it's not really saving that much. And then finally, at level 11, you gain Improved Divine Smite. Whenever you hit a creature with a melee weapon, that creature takes an extra 1d8 radiant damage. So it's kind of like the Divine Strikes that Clerics get at level 8. Paladin is gaining at level 11 and it's radiant damage. At level 11, this isn't going to be a huge boost to your damage, but since it's always on and you want to be auto-attacking anyways, it's definitely a good feature. Altogether, the Paladin base class is still solidly S tier. I mean, Aura of Protection is, a must-have. It's going to be really hard to not play with a Paladin in your party. And then on top of that, you're getting your spellcasting, and you're getting this Improved Divine Smite on a striking class. Just phenomenal. But let's talk about its subclasses. First, Oath of the Ancients. You are gaining bonus spells right here. Again, we're not really going to talk about bonus spells unless there's something really interesting in them. And then at level 7, you gain Aura of Warding. You and a friendly creature within 10 feet of you have resistance to damage from spells. I mean, this is so good, guys. This is so good. Yes, I mean, all damage from spells. This is resistance to all damage from spells. And sure, it's only within 10 feet of you, but you want targets within 10 feet of you anyways because of Aura Protection. So just the increase to durability from both you and whoever is within 10 feet of you. I mean, this is so phenomenal. I don't know what else to say. And remember, this is on the Oath of the Ancients, which is getting the Channel Divinity, which does those procs of healing, which is already giving you so many benefits, especially with the itemization that you can do, that proc on healing, things like the Bless spell effect. You can probably be concentrating on Bless as well with this class. I mean, it's a pretty good striking class that gives you so much durability to your team with its auras and its support spells. Oath of the Ancients is a contender for one of the best classes in the game. Absolutely phenomenal. So let's just move on now to the Oath of Devotion. Again, bonus spells, and then it gets Aura of Devotion. So all of these subclasses will get an aura at level 7. Its aura is that friendly creatures within 10 feet of you can't be charmed while you're conscious. Very underwhelming. Just not very good. Compared to resistance to the damage from spells, this is just not that good. So the Oath of Devotion kind of takes a hit compared to the Oath of Ancients that it's competing with. It's still a good class because of its Sacred Weapon ability, but yeah, we're starting to see the Oath of Ancients kind of pull ahead. Next up is Oathbreaker. It is getting Animate Dead at level 9 as a bonus spell. Very good, especially when you factor in what its aura does. So let's go to that. Aura of Hate at level 7. You, as well as any fiends or undead within 10 feet of you, gain a bonus to melee damage rolls equal to your charisma modifier. A creature can benefit from this feature from only one paladin at a time. Okay, that is good they added this clause, otherwise it'd be broken. You'd stack, 4 Oathbreaker paladins in a party and have all of them summon Animate Dead, and I don't know, maybe get a familiar in there if you can. Anyways, this is a really good feature. This is a amazing aura. Your charisma modifier to the damage of you is already great. You're getting your strength modifier to damage, now your charisma modifier to damage. And this is a very good reason to max charisma on your Oathbreaker. So good. But applying it to all fiends and undead, and you can summon undead. And remember, Animate Dead, the way Larian's implemented it, is one of the creatures you can summon is a zombie, which if it kills other zombies, which it's more likely to do now that it's doing more damage from Aura of Hate, it also spawns another zombie. And then that zombie's going to be doing more damage. And you can just go zombie apocalypse overload with applying your charisma damage to the attacks of so many creatures. This is the kind of S tier ability which you can build an entire team around. So good, and it sounds so fun, and it's going to combine with another class in the game which we're going to talk about later. So remember, in my Paladin review, I ranked the Oath of the Ancients, the Oath of Devotion, and the Oathbreaker all at the A tier. But now, from what we can expect on the full release of the game, the Oath of Devotion, I'd say, stays A tier, but the Oath of Ancients and the Oathbreaker are definitely offering S tier abilities that you can build an entire team composition around, really pulling ahead of Devotion. Phenomenal classes. Again, it's going to be so hard not to have a Paladin in your party. And then finally, we get to the new subclass added, or that will be added on full release, and that is the Oath of Vengeance. We were expecting this one, it's in the player's handbook. So it gets some bonus spells. There are actually some interesting ones we're talking about here. First is Hunter's Mark. Of course, weaponizing your concentration slot. Is this better than just using your concentration to cast Bless? Probably not. If you're choosing between them, it's better to go Bless than Hunter's Mark. That said, you can have the Oath of Vengeance on a party where some other party members concentrating on Bless, in which case you can get Hunter's Mark, adding a fairly significant amount of damage to your DPR. They get Hold Person, incredible spell, especially on Paladins, because Hold Person guarantees a crit. And Paladins are one of the best crit strikers in the game because of their ability to stack up their Divine Smite dice on crits. So, amazing. Misty Step, another great spell, and then they gain Haste. So they can haste themselves if they wanted. And remember, you are basically never going to drop concentration because you're adding your charisma modifier to your concentration saves. So yeah, some really, really good bonus spells for the Vengeance that's worth talking about. Now let's talk about its channel divinities that it gets at level 3. First, Abjure Enemy. As an action, you present your holy symbol and speak a prayer of denunciation using your channel divinity. Choose one creature within 60 feet of you that you can see. That creature must make a wisdom saving throw unless it is immune to being frightened. Fiends and undead have disadvantage on the saving throw. On a failed save, the creature is frightened for 1 minute or until it takes any damage. While frightened, the creature's speed is 0 and it can't benefit from any bonus to its speed. On a successful save, the creature's speed is halved for 1 minute or until the creature takes any damage. Not great. Again, frightened just isn't that good of a condition, so this is taking your action. You're probably just going to want to use your action to kill the target rather than, frightening it and having its speed or whatever. Technically, if there is a creature that can kite you, this is good against that. But otherwise, yeah, not that great, so very situational. Next up is Vow of Enmity. At level 3, you gain this ability. As a bonus action, you can utter a vow against a creature that you can see within 10 feet of you using your channel divinity. You gain advantage on attack rolls against a creature for 1 minute, or until it drops to 0 hit points or falls unconscious. There's no saving throw, it takes a bonus action. You gain advantage on all attack rolls against that creature for 1 minute, so pretty much the entire fight. This is really, really good. The only limiting factor is it's just against one creature. So basically this makes the Oath of Vengeance extremely good in boss fights. right? Anytime you have one creature that you really need to kill, you can use your bonus action to channel Vow of Enmity on it and just go to town striking it. Getting advantage on every attack roll is, we kind of know what that's like because of the Barbarian, right? It's just like having Reckless Attack, except there's no drawbacks, but it only works against one creature. Definitely a good feature, but the fact that it's single target is limiting. At level 7, you gain Relentless Avenger. When you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, you can move up to half your speed immediately after the attack as part of the same reaction. This movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. It just gives you some stick-to-itness. You can really stick to that target. If they're trying to move away from you, run away from you, they're going to proc an opportunity attack, and then you get half your speed to keep sticking on them. It won't probably keep you directly on them, but definitely keep you close enough that you can just, with your normal movement, reclose the distance on them on your following turn. Interestingly, this is not an aura, whereas the other class gain auras at level 7. This class does not. Now, how does this class rank? Honestly, I am a little underwhelmed by the Oath of Vengeance, which might be a surprise. My impression is that the tabletop community values this subclass really highly, but I think they're overlooking some things on it. First off, a lot of its really good spells like Hunter's Mark and Haste are competing for concentration with Bless. So there's a very high opportunity cost on concentration spells for the Paladin, and even though these are good spells to cast, they're not just stacking with the Paladin base kit, they're kind of conflicting with it. Vow of Enmity is of course really good, but everything else that this subclass is giving you before level 12 is just a lot of mobility to stick to your target. Think of like Haste. Haste is giving you a lot of mobility, technically another attack, which is great. But a lot of Paladins kind of get that anyways, because you could have one of your casters haste you. They're getting Relentless Avenger, again, that's just a lot of movement to stick to your target. They can get spells like Misty Step, a lot of movement to stick to your target. Abjure Enemy, it's lowering the movement speed so you can stick to your target. And you don't need all of these. Really, just one or two of them would be enough. Like, if you had Misty Step and Haste, that's enough to stick to every target in the game. You don't need Abjure Enemy. You don't need Relentless Avenger. So what you have is just an overload of mobility. And so what it comes down to is this class sacrifices the insane auras that some of the other Paladin subclasses get for Vow of Enmity, which is a good feature, but is it better than the amazing auras? Just not, frankly. It's just not. So, to me, when it comes to Paladin subclasses, the two standouts are Oath of the Ancients and the Oathbreaker. These are S-tier subclasses. Oath of Devotion and Oath of Vengeance are offering some good offensive features to augment the amazing Paladin base class, but they're not really competing. So, yeah, it's Ancients and Oathbreaker all the way for the Paladin. Next up is the Ranger class. For base class features at level 8, the Ranger gains Land's Stride. This is the same feature that we talked about with the Circle of the Land Druid. It makes you immune to non-magical terrain, and it gives you advantage on magical terrain like Entangle or Create Plants and stuff like that. We discussed it up there. It's situational and still kind of mediocre, so not a great ability. At level 10, they gain a second Natural Explorer. This is actually very good because Natural Explorers, the way Larian has implemented it, gives you resistance to some kind of damage. And the two big damage types you want resistance to are fire and poison. So at level 10, a Ranger is getting both of those, which is excellent. Also at level 10, they gain Hide in Plain Sight. So this is one of the features that's difficult to know how Larian is going to implement it. Here's how it works in tabletop. You can spend 1 minute creating camouflage for yourself. You must have access to fresh mud, dirt, plants, etc., etc. Once you are camouflaged in this way, you can try to hide by pressing yourself up against a solid surface such as a tree or wall that is at least as tall and wide as you are. You gain plus 10 to your stealth checks, and once you move or take an action or a reaction, you must camouflage yourself again to gain this benefit. It's like a very restricted version of the level 2 spell, Pass Without a Trace. It's not good. This isn't good as the way it's written for tabletop, but Hide in Plain Sight in the original Baldur's Gate game allowed you to stealth even when targets are looking at you. And if that's what this is, this could start to be really good, because Rangers, like all classes in Baldur's Gate 3, can hide on a bonus action. Now, if you can hide in the face of people's cones of visions, you can spend every bonus action on your turn hiding to get advantage on your attack for that round. So this is a way to get at least advantage on one attack every round, which is really good. That's really good. So if that's how they implement it, this could be great. Otherwise, it's looking really underwhelming. And that is it for the Ranger base class. Now let's look at its subclasses. Beastmaster. At level 7, they gain Exceptional Training. On any of your turns when your Beast Companion doesn't attack, you can use a bonus action to command the Beast to take the dash, disengage, or help action on its turn. In addition, the Beast attacks now count as magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. Again, I'm not sure how Larian's implementing this because Larian's already changed the Animal Companion to be completely independent of your action economy. That's not how it worked in Tabletop 5e, where you had to spend your own actions to move around your Animal Companion. Larian's already changed that. So they're going to have to find a new implementation for this. Level 11, they gain Bestial Fury. When you command your Beast Companion to take the attack action, the Beast can make 2 attacks, or it can take the multi-attack action if it has that action. Okay, so this is extra attack for your Animal Companions. That's always good. Extra attack is always good. Especially on creatures that just want to be attacking anyways, like Animal Companions do. Altogether, it's going to be dependent on the beast that Larian designs for it. And right now, the beasts in the game are quite good, so that means the Beastmaster is quite good. I'm expecting that it'll stay around an A or B tier. Next up is Hunter. Level 7, you gain Defensive Tactics. Defensive Tactics allows you to pick one of the 3 features listed below. First, Escape from the Horde. Opportunity attacks against you are made with disadvantage. Multi-attack defense. When a creature hits you with an attack, you gain a +4 bonus to AC against all subsequent attacks made by that creature for the rest of the turn, or Steel Will. You have advantage on saving throws against being frightened. Multi-attack defense is the obvious choice here. This is a really good feature, the others are pretty mediocre. By the time you get this, level 7, it is expected that most creatures will have more than 1 attack. So this is a +4 bonus to the second or to all attacks after the first. I mean, yeah, +4 is a lot. That's a lot of bonus to AC. This is a really good feature. So take multi-attack defense every time. At level 11, you gain multi-attack, which allows you to gain one of the following features. Volley or Whirlwind attack. With Volley, you can use your action to make a ranged attack against any number of creatures within a 10 feet point of view that you can see within your weapon's range. You must have ammunition. That doesn't matter. BG3 doesn't use ammunition. Basically, this is an interesting AoE attack where you pick a point and every creature within 10 feet of that you get to make an attack on. Whirlwind attack is similar, except instead of picking a point within 10 feet, you just get to make an attack against any number of creatures within 5 feet of you. And it's hard logging at 5 feet, so you can't do like Whirlwind attack with a reach weapon. It doesn't work like that. Now, both of these, the gist is that in the right situation, you'll be making more attacks than if you just take a standard attack action. So theoretically, you'll be dealing more damage. That said, it's usually better to deal less total damage, but deal it against a single target, than it is to deal a lot of damage, but to water it down against a lot of targets. That's because the main strategy of any tactical turn-based game is to cancel enemy actions. One of the best ways to cancel enemy actions is to kill them before they can act. So less damage to a single target, if it kills them, is going to be better than, spreading out your damage and watering it down against a lot of targets. That said, these multi-attacks do have interesting combinations with some of the features that you can get at level 3 with this subclass. In particular, Colossus Slayer. Colossus Slayer adds 1d8 to the damage of your attacks against targets that have less than max hit points. So if they've taken any damage, you get to deal an extra 1d8 damage when you hit them. With Volley, there could be a very interesting combo where you say, cast an AoE spell like Fireball, which is guaranteed to deal damage to them, even if they make their saving throw. Then follow that up with a Volley, where now you're attacking most of the targets in the Fireball radius, and now your attacks are dealing an extra 1d8 damage, and potentially moving them into kill threat range. The same combo works with Whirlwind Attack, except a little less good because you have to be there in the AoE, so it's a little bit harder to pull off. You have to time it so that the wizard goes first, and then you can move right after before the enemies in that AoE have a chance to move away. But Whirlwind Attack also combines with Hordebreaker in a really interesting way, I think. Actually, I think both of these would combine with Hordebreaker in a really interesting way. So, I've looked at it in the tabletop rules. Hordebreaker, whenever you make an attack against a target, and there is another target within range, you get to make an attack against that target as well. So now, theoretically with volley, let's say you hit 3 targets, you're going to make 3 volley attacks, and each of those attacks is going to proc another attack against someone else in that range. So if I'm doing the math right, it should double your attacks to 6. Same with Whirlwind Attack. So yeah, the multi-attack combining with Hordebreaker has the potential to make a really, really strong combo, and might actually solidify the Hunter's niche as a kind of AoE trash mob killing striker. Where it's been right now is a good, but a little less good than Battle Masters and Barbarians. It didn't really have a niche, it was just doing the same thing that Battle Masters and Barbarians did, but not quite as good. This is really giving it its own niche, so I'm excited to see how these combine. But we've talked about that enough. Let's move on to the Gloomstalker. This is the final subclass that Larian's announced, and this is another one of the surprises. Gloomstalker was not in the player's handbook, but it is a very popular class in 5e for good reason. Let's go over it. You're going to get some bonus spells. Then at level 3, you gain the Dread Ambusher ability. So you can give yourself a bonus to your initiative rolls equal to your wisdom modifier. Wow. Okay. That's really good. Remember when we talked about the Barbarian? The Barbarian gets advantage on their initiative rolls, and we talked about how the value of initiative is equal to the average value of a turn in 5e. That's how you can kind of generalize it abstractly, and the value of a turn in 5e is pretty high. Adding your wisdom modifier to your initiative rolls, again, that could be around a +3 to +4, potentially a +5, but I don't know if it's really worth investing to get a full 20 on your wisdom modifier for rangers. Wisdom is hard to get to 20 because there aren't any races in the game that give you a +2 to your wisdom. So anyways, a +2 to +4, it's pretty much the same as getting advantage. Like mathematically, it'll work out very similarly. You'll be winning initiative more often, and that's so good. Another thing, I can't remember if I said this when we talked about the Barbarian, but one thing you learn if you play a lot of turn-based tactics games is that the value of a round is not equal across all rounds. Really, the earlier the round is in an encounter, the more valuable it is. So the most valuable round is the first round of combat. And then the next most valuable is the second, and so on and so on and so on. And the further down you get, the less volatile rounds get because targets are removed from the game, there's less resources. But, you know, there's kind of like a potential energy. You could think of it as like an elastic that's stretched. On the first round of combat, it's stretched the farthest, and so that's where the most can happen in an encounter. So winning initiative, moving first on the first round, is really, really valuable in turn-based games. Play Darkest Dungeon is a great example of a game that, or another great one is just Pokemon. Like, moving first in Pokemon, extremely strong, and something similar is the same in 5e. It's the same in all turn-based tactics games. So yeah, I'm just gushing. This is an amazing feature, and we haven't even finished reading it. Let's keep reading. At the start of your first turn of each combat, your walking speed increases by 10 feet. Awesome. That lasts until the end of your turn, okay? If you take the attack action on that turn, you can make one additional weapon attack as part of that action. If that attack hits, the target also takes an extra 1d8 damage. So good, guys. This is so good. Basically, this is really increasing the odds that you can kill a target in the first round. Killing a target in the first round can just solidify the fight for you. I mean, that's canceling an entire creature from the encounter. They don't get to take any actions because you killed them before they could. So good. So good. So yeah, Dread Ambusher, amazing. But they also gain Umbral Sight at level 3. This gives them Dark Vision of a range of 60 feet, so that's kind of like Superior Dark Vision. If you already have Dark Vision, it increases by 30 feet. Okay, that's cool. You're also adept at evading creatures that rely on Dark Vision. While in darkness, you are invisible to any creature that relies on Dark Vision to see you in that darkness. Not sure how that's going to be implemented, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know if I can comment on this until we see how Larian implements it. At level 7, they gain Iron Mind. You've honed your ability to resist the mind-altering powers of your prey. You gain proficiency in Wisdom saving throws. If you already have this proficiency, you instead gain proficiency in Intelligence or Charisma saving throws. Proficiency in Wisdom saving throws is very good, so that's what you can expect to get. Rangers are not proficient in Wisdom saving throws, so the only way you'd have this proficiency is if you dual class. So yeah, this is a proficiency in Wisdom saving throws, which is not very interesting, but very powerful. And then at level 11, your last feature is Stalker's Fury. You learn to attack with such unexpected speed that you can turn a miss into another strike. On each of your turns, when you miss with a weapon attack, you can make another weapon attack as part of the same action. Is it just one weapon attack per action? Oh yeah, it says once on each of your turns. Okay, if it wasn't once, this would be way too good. But even with once, this is very good. Definitely best used with Great Weapon Master. I mean, this is turning into kind of an amazing Great Weapon Master class, like an assassin class, where you're consistently winning initiative, and then on that first round of combat, you're making an extra attack, you're dealing an extra 1d8 damage on that attack, you're getting extra movement to close on your target. So you're going to want to build this class to take out a priority target on the first round of combat consistently, and that is really, really good. This is an S tier subclass. And I love that the Ranger base class is getting an S tier class. Hunter and Beastmaster were good, but they were just a little bit worse than some of their competitors. But Gloomstalker is really giving them a niche. I'm so excited to play this subclass. Amazing addition by Larian. Thank you for adding it. Next up, the Rogue. Rogue base class at level 7 gains Evasion. When you are subjected to an effect that allows you to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, you instead take no damage if you succeed on the saving throw, and half damage if you fail. Yeah, that's a really good durability boost. Didn't the Barbarian get something like this? Either way, good. Not much to say about this. This is just reducing damage from spells, basically. Any save spell, it's reducing that damage. Amazing. At level 10, you gain an extra feat or ASI. Yes, that is very good. At level 11, you gain Reliable Talent. You refine your chosen skill until they approach perfection. Whenever you make an ability check that lets you add your proficiency bonus, you can treat a die 20 roll of 9 or lower as a 10. I like this. It adds some consistencies to the class, but mostly an out-of-combat feature. Technically, if you invest in shoves with the athletic skill, which you should do on rogues, in my opinion, this could remove the RNG for succeeding on shoves, and that is very good. Being able to predictively shove targets into Cloud of Dagger is awesome. And then, of course, your sneak attack is going to be improving on odd levels. So by level 11, it will max at 6d6. 6d6 sneak attack damage is so underwhelming. It's not a lot of damage, guys. It's just not. Compared to what other classes can do, it's not. So I'm still concerned about the Rogue. I think Rogues need a way to get 2 sneak attacks in a round for them to really compete with other strikers. Regardless, let's look at their subclasses, starting with Arcane Trickster. Arcane Tricksters are going to max at 2nd level spells at level 7. That's giving them access to some pretty good spells. They're going to get Magical Ambush at level 9. If you are hidden from a creature when you cast a spell on it, that creature has disadvantage on any saving throw it makes against the spell on this turn. So this is like the equivalent of the level 10 feature that Eldritch Knights get, which is a consistent way to apply disadvantage on saving throws. And the obvious use for this is to combine it with spell scrolls, making your Arcane Trickster actually very, very potent casters on top of whatever they, being frankly kind of underwhelming strikers. But still, this is a reason to pick this subclass. This is an S tier feature easily. Arcane Trickster should be useful on full release of the game. I'm excited to play one. Next up is Thieves. At level 9, Thieves gain Supreme Sneak, which gives them advantage on Dexterity stealth checks if you move no more than half your speed on the same turn. I don't know how Larian's going to implement this. Maybe just advantage on stealth checks, which is not great. Definitely not that great. So the main reason to pick Thief is just for the extra bonus action, but I think that's kind of starting to lose its attractiveness in my mind. I don't know. I guess Thief is just a 3-level dip. Yeah, you can think of Thief as a subclass that's a 3-level dip to get you an extra bonus action that you combine with some other class. And then we're going to get Assassin. We were expecting this. It's in the player's handbook. Let's see what it does. At level 3, Assassins gain the Assassinate ability. So you are deadliest when you get the drop on your enemies. You have advantage on attack rolls against any creature that hasn't taken a turn in combat yet. In addition, any hit you score against a creature that is surprised is a critical hit. Oh! Yeah, so we just talked with the Gloomstalker about how good the first round of combat is. Assassinate is a really similar kind of feature where if you're winning on initiative, you can just deal a lot of damage to a single target because, on the first place, getting advantage on your attack rolls is guaranteeing your sneak attack, and then sneak attacks are actually very good if you're getting critical hits. So if you can surprise an enemy, now we're talking. I haven't really played around with it, but I bet there are some ways that you could reliably start in a surprise round with the Assassin. Now, combining a Gloomstalker with a 3-level dip and Assassin, that's starting to sound like a really good build, so someone should try that. I probably won't try it for a while, but someone should, and let me know how it goes. At level 9, you gain Infiltration expertise. You can unfailingly create false identities for yourself, and then there's a bunch of rules about how to do this. Who knows? This is an out-of-combat feature. Who knows how Larian's going to implement it? So yeah, besides the Arcane Trickster, all rogue classes are just looking like a 3-level dip, either for the bonus, the extra bonus action, or for the Assassinated ability, which is best to combine with the Gloomstalker Ranger. Altogether, rogues are looking very niche, still in their very niche spot in Baldur's Gate 3. Next up, Sorcerer. Sorcerer base class. At level 10, they're going to gain +1 meta magic. That's it. That's it. Besides spell progression, that's all sorcerers are getting. But you're getting a lot from your spell progression, so it kind of makes sense. Let's look at the subclasses now. First off, Draconic Bloodline. On top of everything else that Draconic Bloodline gets, that's already in early access. At level 6, you're going to get Elemental Affinity. When you cast a spell that deals damage of the type associated with your Draconic ancestry, add your Charisma modifier to 1 damage roll of that spell. At the same time, you can spend 1 sorcery point to gain resistance to the damage type for 1 hour. Oof. This isn't very good, guys. Charisma modifier just once to the damage roll. Oof. Yeah, not great. Low B tier ranking for that. And that's it for Draconic Bloodline. Honestly, altogether, Draconic Bloodline is both boring and underwhelming, so not loving it. Next up is Wild Magic. Wild Mages at level 6 gain Bend Luck. You have the ability to twist fate using your Wild Magic. When another creature you can see makes an attack roll, an ability check, or a saving throw, you can use your reaction to spend 2 sorcery points to roll a 1d4 and apply the number rolled as a bonus or penalty to the creature's roll. You can do so after the creature rolls, but before any effects of the roll occur. This is very good, and it's good if you are using it to subtract from an enemy's saving throw on a really debilitating spell. That's when it's useful. Otherwise, the cost of 2 sorcery points is pretty steep. You're probably better just using the sorcery points on meta magic. Anyways, altogether, Wild Mage is staying where I've left it. I think it's a very interesting subclass. It's super fun to play, and it's actually offering you quite a bit. So far, my favorite, but there's one left to talk about, which is the Storm Sorcerer, a surprise spell class. This is a subclass that is available in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, which is an underused book in tabletop 5e in my experience. Let's talk about the Storm Sorcerer. At level 1, you gain Tempestuous Magic. You can use a bonus action on your turn to cause a swirling gust of elemental air to briefly surround you immediately before or after you cast a spell of first level or higher. Doing so allows you to fly up to 10 feet without provoking an opportunity attack. So this is interesting. It giving you flight is what makes it really interesting. The vertical encounter design that Larian's implemented in this game makes flying pretty good. Being able to fly 10 feet is potentially worth triple or quadruple the distance in just normal movement. You might fly to a place where the melee guy who closes the distance on you, can't even reach you next turn. So that is very cool. I'm liking that. But the main reason to pick this class is actually what it gets at level 6. You gain resistance to lightning and thunder damage. Nice. The lightning damage is particularly good. In addition, whenever you start casting a spell of first level or higher that deals lightning damage or thunder damage, stormy magic erupts from you. This eruption causes a creature of your choice that you can see within 10 feet of you to take lightning damage or thunder damage equal to half of your sorcerer level. So it's adding half your sorcerer level and thunder damage anytime you cast a spell that deals lightning damage or thunder damage. So against wet targets, this will be an extra 12 damage. That's decent. Yeah, that's potentially quite good against wet targets. So, Storm Sorcerer definitely has its niche, which is in any kind of team composition that's going to be built around attacking wet targets. And then for everything else, I think Wild Magic is best. Draconic Bloodline is pretty underwhelming to me. Of course, regardless of subclass, the value of a sorcerer is going to depend on creative uses of meta magic, and that is going to depend on what meta magic we have in the game and what spells we have in the game. So it's hard to judge how good the sorcerer is going to be. Moving on to the Warlock class now. The Warlock base class at level 7 and 9 is going to get +1 invocation. And of course, the better and better invocations become available at higher levels. I could go through the whole invocation list, but I'm not going to. It's not really the video for that. And at level 11, I believe, they gain Mystic Arcanum, 6th level, which is giving them a spell slot for a 6th level spell. It's the Warlock's way of mimicking the spell advancement of a full caster class with their pact magic or whatever. So I don't know, it's giving them a 6th level spell, kind of like the way wizards and sorcerers gain 6th level spells. And that's it for the Warlock base class. Now let's look at its subclasses, starting with Fiend. Of course, there are bonus spells right here, nothing really special to talk about. At level 6, they gain Dark One's Own Luck. When you make an ability check or saving throw, you can use this feature to add 1d10 to your roll. You can do so after seeing the initial roll, but before any of the roll's effects occur. Phenomenal. Adding 1d10 to a saving throw is a very big deal, and this stacks with all the other features that improve our saving throws. This is especially good for maintaining concentration, which of course for the Warlock is important. At level 10, you gain Fiendish Resilience. You can choose one damage type. When you finish a short or long rest, you gain resistance to that damage type until you choose a different one with this feature. Damage with magical weapons or silver weapons ignores this resistance, so probably best not to pick a physical damage type, but an elemental one. This is just another damage type resistance, which is good. Altogether, the Fiend Warlock is a fairly durable class, getting a bonus to its hit points, to its saving throws, and now to its damage resistances. Altogether, I'm pretty impressed with this class. Nothing that it is getting is game-changing, but it is very resilient. So I probably give the Fiend an A tier. Next up is Great Old One. It's getting some bonus spells right here. A lot of Dominates, which are good. I believe Dominate is the version of Charm which actually does give you control over an enemy, which is always a big deal. In the action economy, you're stealing one from them and you're gaining one for you for a total. Level 6, they gain Entropic Ward. When a creature makes an attack roll against you, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage on that roll. If the attack misses you, your next attack roll against the creature has advantage if you make it before the end of your next turn. That's pretty good. You'll definitely use this. It's not gated by anything. Yeah, it's not gated by anything. So this is disadvantage on all attack rolls against you. Or no, at least one per turn because of your reaction. Still very good use of your reaction. Fantastic ability. Level 10, Thought Shield. Your thoughts can be read by telepathy or other means unless you allow it. You also have resistance to psychic damage, and whenever a creature deals psychic damage to you, that creature takes the same amount of damage that you do. This is niche. Psychic damage is not very common, but one enemy type that it is common against is Mind Flayers. Mind Flayers deal psychic damage, so seeing as the plot of this game is building up towards conflicts with Mind Flayers, this potentially can be very good. So it's hard to tell how good this is going to be until we get the full release of the game, but I have a lot of hope for this. This might be one of the better Warlock subclasses. And that brings us to the last subclass, Archfey. This one is added, but we were expecting it. Archfey, bonus spells. Here are their bonus spells. Nothing really special that we need to mention. They gain, at level 1, they gain Fey Presence. Your patron bestows upon you the ability to project the beguiling and fearsome presence of the Fey. As an action, you can cause each creature in a 10-foot cube originating from you to make a wisdom saving throw against your Warlock spell save DC. The creatures that fail their saving throws are all charmed or frightened by you until the end of your next turn. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. Again, charmed and frightened are not great conditions, but at the early levels, this can be useful as a way of avoiding aggro. At level 6, they gain Misty Escape. When you take damage, you can use your reaction to turn invisible and teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space that you can see. You remain invisible until the start of your next turn, or until you attack or cast a spell. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. Now, if you are using this to avoid taking damage, it would be phenomenal. But it says when you take the damage. So the implication is that the damage hits, you take the full amount, and then you can teleport as a way to escape. So it's a little bit like the Storm Sorcerer ability. Better, of course, you're getting it at a later level, you're teleporting up to 60 feet, but you aren't avoiding the damage. I mean, still good, right? Especially if you're using this to teleport into high ground. This is very good for that, and Warlocks are some of the best users of high ground, so another good feature. And then at level 10 you gain Beguiling Defenses. You are immune to being charmed, and when another creature attempts to charm you, you can use your reaction to turn the charm back on that creature. The creature must succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your Warlock spell save DC, or be charmed by you for 1 minute, or until the creature takes any damage. Again, not great, unless the Dominate ability is keyworded as a charm, in which case this could be quite good, otherwise not good. Altogether, I am very impressed with the Great Old One and the Fiend, the Archfey. It's hard to see if it's going to be good. At this point, it looks like it's a step below the other two, so that is the Warlock class. And now we're on to our last class, the Wizard. Man, it feels like I've been talking for a while. So let's dive right in. The Wizard. Wizards are going to gain, of course, more spells as they level up, and their Arcane Recovery progression is going to improve. That is an ability they get at early levels, but that scales with them. So already that's a lot for this class. Now let's look at the subclasses. This is the class that has the most subclasses added, I think. It's between the Wizard or the Cleric. First, the classes that we have in the game so far, the Abjuration Wizard. At level 6, they're going to gain Project Ward. Basically, this allows you to use your Arcane Ward as a reaction to absorb damage for an ally within 30 feet. And damage beyond what the ward absorbs is dealt to them, not you. But potentially a way to use your action to keep an ally from dropping to 0 hit points. If you use it for that, it is good. Honestly, I'd say this is just good. One of the problems with the Abjuration Wizard is they're getting all these temporary hit points, but you usually do not want to be taking damage as a wizard because you want to avoid hits so you can maintain concentration. But this allows you to actually use your projected ward without risking dropping your concentration, which is excellent. At level 10, you gain Improved Abjuration. When you cast an Abjuration spell that requires you to make an ability check as part of casting that spell, as in Counterspell or Dispel Magic, you add your proficiency bonus to that ability check. This is potentially making Counterspell and Dispel Magic very, very reliable, which is great. Good spells, especially Counterspell S tier. So altogether, good features you're getting in the Abjuration Wizard. The Abjuration is a solid defensive wizard base, but there are some other subclasses that kind of outperform it. Next up is Evocation. Starting at level 6, they gain Potent Cantrip. Your damaging cantrips affect even creatures that avoid the brunt of the effect. When a creature succeeds on a saving throw against your cantrip, that creature takes half the cantrip's damage, if any, but suffers no additional effect from the cantrip. Now, I need to do the math to see how good this is. This is basically turning your save spell cantrips into like normal leveled save spells where they deal damage even if the enemy makes the saving throw. Now, the obvious use of this is to guarantee a kill. Like if you have a target at 1 hit point, you can now guarantee a kill without actually having to cast a spell. But just as a normal, like this is how I usually make my attacks, is with a save cantrip, I do not think this is going to make the save cantrip better than just casting Firebolt. In which case, you're getting a whole level 6 feature that's doing nothing for your build. So yeah, I'm a little underwhelmed by this, but I do need to do the math to make sure that my instincts on it is correct. At level 10, you gain Empowered Evocation. You can add your Intelligence modifier to 1 damage roll of any wizard evocation spell you cast. This is similar. Other class features we've covered so far, I don't like it. It's not a lot of added damage at all. If this was added like to every bolt in a magic missile spell, now we're starting to talk. But as is, it's just once per round that you cast a spell, and it's just not very much for a level 10 ability. It's not changing your TPR that much. It's just not doing that much. So yeah, I'm underwhelmed by the Evocation Wizard. I don't really think it's worth taking. Next up, Conjuration. At level 2, they gain... Oh, and of course, this is the first of the new subclasses. So we were expecting all of these, but it's still very exciting. Conjuration. At level 2, you gain Minor Conjuration. You can use your action to conjure up an inanimate object in your hand or on the ground in an unoccupied space that you can see within 10 feet of you. This object can be no larger than 3 feet on a side and weigh no more than 10 pounds, and it goes through all of these rules. This is the kind of thing that is difficult to understand how Larian's going to implement it, so I don't feel like I can say anything about it. So let's just move on. At level 6, they gain Benign Transposition. You can use your action to teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space that you can see. Alternatively, you can choose a space within range that is occupied by a small or a medium creature. If that creature is willing, you both teleport, swapping places. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest or you cast a conjuration spell of 1st level or higher. Now, wizards can use their spells to teleport and fly to places that a lot of other classes don't have access to. So the most obvious use for Benign Transposition that I can think of is to fly or teleport up somewhere very high or safe or just tactically advantageous, and then to swap places with one of your allies so that now they are there where they otherwise wouldn't be able to be. I mean, other than that, it's a teleport. It's good, but not really an S tier feature worth building around. And then finally, at level 10, they gain Focus Conjuration. While you are concentrating on a conjuration spell, your concentration can't be broken as a result of taking damage. Okay, awesome. This is the kind of S tier subclass feature that you can build a whole build around. Love to see it. I mean, I need to go through the list and see what conjuration spells we can expect in the game, but likely you're going to be using this on a potent summon spell if there are any. So this will be very good if there are conjuration, S-tier conjuration spells that you want to be concentrating on. Otherwise, it's going to be not that great because you'd probably prefer spending your concentration on something else, in which case it does nothing. Hard to tell how the conjuration subclass is going to work out. I could see it being extremely good, like high A tier or low S tier. I could also see it just being completely useless. It will depend on the spell selection and how they implement minor conjuration. Next up is Divination. This is one of my favorite subclasses and one of the community's favorite. At level 2, the Divination Wizard gains Portent. So whenever you finish a long rest, roll 2 die 20s and record the numbers rolled. You can replace any attack roll, saving throw, or ability check made by you or a creature that you can see with one of these foretelling rolls. You must choose to do so before the roll, and you can replace a roll in this way only once per turn. Each foretelling roll can be used only once. When you finish a long rest, you lose any unused foretelling rolls. Now, it's pretty limited in terms of amount of times per long rest, but the big thing you can do with this is to guarantee a hit on one of your strikers in a situation where you need a hit to kill a target, and then you can also guarantee that an enemy fails a saving throw on one of your potent spells. So if you roll low, you can guarantee a failure on a saving throw, and if you roll high, you can guarantee a hit for an ally. Of course, if you roll a 20, you're guaranteeing a crit, which is incredible. This is just such a good ability and so fun to play around with, basically limiting RNG, and anytime you're playing an RNG-based, turn-based game, you should see your entire job as to minimize RNG as much as possible. So, great feature. S-tier feature, definitely a reason to play this class. Expert Divination, level 6. Casting divination spells comes so easily to you that it expends only a fraction of your spellcasting efforts. When you cast a divination spell of 2nd level or higher using a spell slot, you regain 1 expended spell slot. The slot you gained must be a lower level than the spell you cast, and can't be higher than 5th level. I'm not really sure how useful this is going to be, to be honest. I don't know what divination spells are going to be in the game and how useful they are, so potentially this is giving you a lot of spell slots back. Casting spells that you want to be casting anyways, and if that is the case, this could be insane S tier. But if you're going to have to go out of your way to cast a spell that you don't want to cast to get them back, it's probably not worth the trade. So potentially insane, potentially completely useless. So hard to tell right now. And that brings us to the last one for the divination, which is the third eye, which you gain at level 10. You can use your action to increase your powers of perception. When you do so, choose one of the following benefits, which lasts until you are incapacitated or take a short or long rest. So you change this on a short rest, which is good. Gives you a lot of customization. And you can gain Dark Vision, 60 feet, Ethereal Sight. I don't know what that's going to be, to be honest. Greater Comprehension, you can read any language. That probably will not be in the game because Larian hasn't really done languages. Or See Invisibility, you can see invisible creatures and objects within 10 feet of you that are within line of sight. This is the one to go for. Already in the game, there are stealth and invisible targets. So with a wizard being able to see them, awesome. So good feature. So far, potentially, depending on how Expert Divination turns out, all good features for the Divination Wizard, putting it in the high end for the Wizard subclasses. Next up is the Enchantment subclass. At level 2, you gain Hypnotic Gaze. As an action, choose one creature that you can see within 5 feet of you. If that target can see or hear you, it must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw against your Wizard spell save DC, or be charmed by you until the end of your next turn. The charmed creature speed drops to 0 and is incapacitated and visibly dazed. So you can spend your action to take a target out of combat, and the rest of this spell description is saying how you can, every round, you can reuse your action to maintain the effect. So if they fail once, that is it. It's like a stasis where you trade your action for their action. It does end if the creature takes damage. So I know what you're thinking, where you can just freeze a creature and then beat him to death, but that's not how it works. Honestly, the use of this is to take a target out of combat, like a boss target, kill all of the other ones, and then gang up and kill him, which is potentially very good, but you're having to sacrifice basically all of what you're doing as a wizard to do that. With the exception of your concentration spell slot. This is not taking your concentration, which means you could cast a spell like Haste, then do this, and you're canceling the entire value of an enemy while you're still getting the value of your concentration spell slot to use Haste. So could be good for that. It seems a little situational, a little niche, but not completely useless. Yeah, there's definitely some ways you could play around with it and get some use out of it. So Yeah, I'm tentatively optimistic about Hypnotic Gaze. Next up is Instinctive Charm, which they gain at level 6. When a creature you can see within 30 feet of you makes an attack roll against you, you can use your reaction to divert the attack, provided another creature is within the attack's range, maybe a creature that you have Hypnotic Gaze on. So the attacker makes a wisdom saving throw, and if they fail, they must target the creature that is closest to it, not including you or itself. If there's multiple, you choose. On a successful save, you can't use this feature on the attacker again until you finish a long rest. I would use this to divert attacks to one of the bulkier members of my party so that I do not risk having to make a concentration saving throw. That is the use of this. But you have to be within 5 meters of your ally at all times, which might be pretty restrictive. So this can be useful, but I don't know. Maybe not that useful, probably like a B tier ability. Finally, at level 10, you gain Split Enchantment. When you cast an enchantment spell of first level or higher that targets only one creature, you can have it target a second creature instead. So this is like the twin spell that a sorcerer can do, except you get it for free, but only on enchantment spells. But that's already so good. Think of like Hold Monster, you're splitting it now. For the cost of 1 concentration, you're paralyzing 2 targets. Yeah, this is an S tier ability. It's the reason to pick enchantment. It definitely gives the enchantment its niche as probably the best controller subclass. It's between the enchanter and the divination wizard, because being able to guarantee or potentially guarantee failures on enemies with portent makes you a very good controller. So next up, illusion. This one's really tough to judge. Let's take a look. At level 2, they gain improved minor illusion. You learn the minor illusion cantrip. If you already know this cantrip, you learn a different wizard cantrip of your choice. The cantrip doesn't count against your number of cantrips known, So when you cast minor illusion, you can create both a sound and an image with a single casting of the spell. What does this mean? In Baldur's Gate 3, I have no idea. But it's going to augment your minor illusion spell, which is already a really good spell. So potentially good, potentially useless. Can't really know until we get full release. Next up, Malleable Illusions. When you cast an illusion spell that has a duration of 1 minute or longer, you can use your action to change the nature of that illusion, provided that you can see the illusion. There's just no way of knowing what this means for Baldur's Gate 3, so let's just not waste any time talking about it. Lastly, Illusory Self, level 10. You can create a illusory duplicate of yourself as an instant, almost instinctual reaction to danger. So when a creature makes an attack roll against you, you could use your reaction to interpose the illusory duplicate between the attacker and yourself. The attack automatically misses you, then the illusion dissipates. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So you can use your reaction to automatically and without fail make an attack miss you. Of course, the value of this is going to be equivalent to the value of the attack being made. Potentially very, very high. You could be canceling 50, maybe 60 damage, depending on the enemy that is attacking you. It's just one attack, but the obvious is useful. You're just canceling damage and avoiding the potential loss of your concentration. This is a really good ability. Really, really good, but you're getting it late in the game. So if the illusion classes were taking, it's going to be how they implement these first 2 features, and we just can't know that right now. So I can't really make a judgment on the illusion wizard. Next up is Necromancy. I'm so excited for this one. At level 2, you gain Grim Harvest. Once per turn, when you kill 1 or more creatures with a spell of first level or higher, you regain hit points equal to twice the spell's level, or 3 times its level if the spell belongs to the School of Necromancy. It's giving you some passive healing, but honestly not that much passive healing, and you only get healing whenever you've already taken damage, when you're below max health, and as a wizard you don't really want to take damage, so not really that great of a feature. At level 6 you get Undead Thralls. You add the Animate Dead spell to your spellbook if it is not there already. When you cast Animate Dead, you can target 1 additional corpse or pile of bones, creating another zombie or skeleton as appropriate. Whenever you create an undead using a necromancy spell, it has the additional benefits. the creature's hit point maximum is increased by an amount equal to your wizard level, and the creature adds your proficiency bonus to its weapon damage rolls. Alright, so remember with Animate Dead, you want to be creating zombies, because zombies can create other zombies. So with this spell, you're creating double the amount of initial zombies in your party, increasing the potential to create even more zombies in the future. On top of that, all of these zombies will have more hit points, equal to your wizard level. That's a lot more. Let's say you have 5, 6, maybe 7 zombies in your party at level 12. All of them will be getting 12 extra hit points. So that's 12 times 7. That's a lot of added hit points in your party that enemies have to hack their way through. So that's already really good, this feature right here. And then they add your proficiency bonus to their weapon damage rolls. Now remember, this will stack if you have an Oathbreaker in your party who through his aura is adding potentially his charisma modifier to the damage. So now with a charisma modifier of +5, your proficiency bonus will max at +4. You could potentially be adding +9 damage to the damage of who knows how many zombies you're summoning. And you want them to be doing more damage, because more damage means more likely to kill, which means more zombies, which means more damage, and the cycle just goes on and on and on. It's really hard to know how good this is going to be. All of them are going to be vulnerable to AoE attacks, but the idea of creating a zombie apocalypse, of zombies creating more zombies and all of them doing so much buffed damage, I cannot wait. I'll 100% be doing a playthrough of Necromancer with Oathbreaker Paladin. It's going to be really, really fun. Altogether, this is an S tier. I mean, it's hard to know, but I'm thinking this will be an S tier feature. It's definitely the kind of feature you can make a whole build around. At level 10, you gain Inured by Undeath. You have resistance to necrotic damage, and your hit point maximum cannot be reduced. You have spent so much time dealing with undead and the forces that animate them that you become inured with some of their worst effects. So that's just the flavor text. Basically, you're resistant to necrotic damage. That's nice. Your hit point maximum cannot be reduced. It's hard to know how useful that's going to be. So kind of underwhelming for a level 10 feature. But the power of this class is coming from undead thralls. In my opinion, the Necromancer is up there with the Diviner for wizard subclasses I'm really excited about. And finally, to the last subclass we're going to be talking about, Transmutation. At level 2, you gain Minor Alchemy. You can temporarily alter the physical properties of one non-magical object, changing it from one substance to another. And then it gives all the rules for that. But this is, I'm not going to read it because this is just the kind of thing that we don't know how Larian's going to implement it. It doesn't really seem like it's useful. I imagine, man, I just don't know. I shouldn't speculate. So we'll just hold off and see what we're going to get for Minor Alchemy. Next up, Transmuter Stone at level 6. You can spend 8 hours creating a Transmuter Stone that stores transmutation magic. You can benefit from the stone yourself or give it to another creature. A creature gains a benefit of your choice as long as the stone is in the creature's possession. When you create the stone, choose a benefit from one of the following options. 1. Dark vision range of 60 feet. 2. Increased speed of 10 feet, that is 3 meters, while unencumbered. 3. Proficiency in Constitution saving throws. 4. Resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. Each time you cast a transmutation spell of first level or higher, you can change the effect of your stone if the stone is on your person. If you create a new transmuter stone, the previous one ceases to function. Now this is confusing, but it's actually very, very good. Basically, you're creating an item which you can hand to someone which gives them a buff, and it can be in a range of buffs, and you can change it very easily. Now 2 of these buffs stand out. The first, and best probably, is proficiency to Constitution saving throws, which you can give to yourself or an ally that most needs to make concentration checks. So you could just use this only and it would already be an amazing feature. But you could also change it to resistant to elemental damage. And remember, because this is so easy to change, you just do it automatically whenever you cast a first level spell or higher, you could change it in the middle of a fight. So if you're expecting to be taking elemental damage, you could change, and then afterwards change it back to a Constitution saving throw proficiency. So it's adaptable. You can give it to yourself or anyone else. It costs nothing in your action economy. This is a really, really good buff. So yeah, good feature. Probably A tier feature there, maybe even S tier. Finally, at level 10, you gain Shape Changer. You add the Polymorph spell to your spellbook if it's not already there. You can cast Polymorph without expending a spell slot. Okay, that's cool. When you do so, you can target only yourself or transform into a beast whose challenge rating is 1 or lower. Once you cast Polymorph in this way, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest, though you can still cast it normally using an available spell slot. So, potentially good depending on what beast Larian gives us options to change into. We cannot know at this point of the game. So Transmuter is good, definitely good, but not as good as some of the really good ones that we've seen, like Enchanter, Diviner, or Necromancer, but it's kind of in the secondary tier of off-meta wizard subclasses, as far as I can tell right now. And that is it for all the classes. Okay, we are going to stop here. There is, of course, more to cover. I've got the feats to talk about, which are very important, and I have some things to say about the new companions that they've announced, but we've covered all of the classes, and this is already the longest video I've done by far, so we're going to call it quits here. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Stay tuned, I'll have the last video out as quickly as I can. I'll see you then.